Hello, I'm the 10-minute English teacher. Let's get you exam ready. Today we're thinking about GCSE English language and we're thinking about non-fiction writing. I'm providing a walking talking mock to you and all you need is a piece of paper and a pen. Before we get writing, we're going to think about discursive techniques. You might have heard of them as persuasive techniques. I'm going to walk you through some of them that we'll be able to use today in the writing that we'll do. So, discursive techniques, the first one we're going to think about is addressing the reader. Here's an example of that. If you have direction in your life, it might be time for you to stop and think about who has helped you to become the person you are. So addressing the reader several times in that sentence to engage them and make it personal. You might have been tempted to use facts, opinions and statistics, but I think it's worth noting that they can stop your writing from having a really believable, confident tone, and that's what you're going to get the marks for. The chief examiner recommends that you spend more time planning and less time thinking about fictional statistics. Here's an example of that in action. We've got Dr. Bobbins of the University of Manchester said that 82% of young people have a celebrity hero, and the next paragraph might even be Bobbins himself having a bit of a comment on that or the theme of the question. I'm not going to include any opportunities to write about fictional experts today, but you can think about whether or not that would lend more credibility to your writing or less. So instead of doing that, what we will definitely do is we'll use the rule of 3. Here's an example. Today's world is filled with danger, fear and uncertainty. So young people need role models now more than ever before. So all I've done is I've got 3 different words or phrases together: danger, fear and uncertainty, which always has a persuasive effect. That's something we can definitely do, and we need to use rhetorical questions as well. Here's an example. Is it really important for young people today to have role models? I could, if I want to be even more effective, have a 1-sentence paragraph that is a rhetorical question just to give even more impact and emphasis. I definitely think it's a good idea to use some repetition now and again. Here's an example. Role models are important and role models can guide you in your life. So I've repeated a word or a phrase in that sentence for persuasive effect. And rather than having those fictional experts, I often go for the counter argument in my persuasive writing. And here's an example of how you might like to do that. Some people think we don't need role models, but didn't these people once have teachers? So what I'm doing there is, in a paragraph, I would address what someone who doesn't agree with me might say or think, and then I'll challenge that argument in order to lend even more credibility to my own argument. So those are discursive techniques. As a way of remembering those, rather than having a forest, which you might have used before, we've got CATRR, because we've got counter-argument, addressing the reader, we've got the rule of 3, repetition and rhetorical questions. I have got a way of you remembering that. It's come and try Roy's rolls. And there is Roy's rolls for anybody who remembers Roy from Coronation Street. You don't need to, that's his roll shop. So come and try Roy's rolls if you want to be persuasive. And those are techniques that you'll be able to use today in today's question. And here it is. Young people need role models. Write an article explaining your opinions on this statement. So the first 5 minutes of your time in the exam would be planning. I'm going to help you get on board with that now. So I've done some planning for you. This is what we're going to be writing about today. So we've got an introduction. So we're going to have a paragraph and maybe a 1-sentence paragraph, rhetorical question that just introduces our ideas and gives the reader clear understanding of what position we're going to take. No article starts with "I agree, I disagree with the statement." That isn't how it works. Don't do that. It's no good. Don't entertain that idea. You're going to start with an interesting, engaging opening that sort of makes it clear to me what it is you're arguing for or against. I'm going to be today arguing that having role models is important because I think that's an easier way to do it. So we've got parents and carers and the role that they play in our lives. Teachers, ultimately, the person marking your exam is going to be an English teacher, so you may as well ingratiate yourself with them. So you can talk about how influential teachers are. I'm going to have a paragraph about nurses that I'm going to talk to you about today. You're going to address the counter-argument and then you're going to conclude. Now, each one of these is going to take you about 5 minutes or so. So having a plan where you've got 5 or 6 good key points to work through is the best use of your time in the first 5 minutes of that 45 minutes that you've got to do your writing. So part 1 now. I'm going to give you some time to do this. You are going to be writing a paragraph that ends by explaining how young people need role models. So this is our introduction. You're telling us what your perspective is and your position. So I've given you a sentence starter there. Think about the world that we live in today, and you can talk about how it's changing and it's threatening, and how young people growing up in really difficult circumstances and changing times need role models in order to guide them through their adolescence. So you've got about 5 minutes. You'll hear from me when your time is up. So next 5 minutes, we're going to be writing a paragraph about parents and carers and the importance that they play in our lives. I've given you a sentence starter there that you're welcome to use. Parents and carers shape our lives, nice and simple. Remember those persuasive techniques. We've got addressing the reader, the rule of 3, rhetorical questions, and repetition to use here. So you've got about 5 minutes. You'll hear from me when that time is up. Okay, you've had about 5 minutes now. I'm going to move you on to part 3 for our next 5 minutes of writing. Part 3, we're going to write a paragraph explaining what a good teacher is. Here's a sentence starter from me that you're welcome to steal. Teachers are great role models to young people and help to guide them towards their future. And then you can think about 4 or 5 things that you think teachers do for young people. Try and be persuasive in your tone. Remember the techniques. You've got 5 minutes and you'll hear from me when the time is up. Okay, you've had about 5 minutes writing that section of your response. Let's move on to part 4. So for part 4, we're going to write about how we should look up to people like nurses who work really hard and arguably are not given the respect that they deserve and certainly don't get paid as much as they deserve to. So we can talk about that really, really selfless work that nurses do and how important they are and how much more important they are to society than people who are simply famous for being on television. So I'm going to start you off here with this sentence starter. You don't have to find your heroes on reality television. Some are much closer to home. So there's great role models and heroes to be found in our communities, and nurses are definitely those people. So we've got a paragraph here about the work that they do and how important and valuable they are to all of us. You've got 5 minutes to write that paragraph now, or that section, and you'll hear from me when the time is up. Okay, it's time to move on to part 5 now. So we're going to address the counter argument with reference to a celebrity role model. One you can choose. Think of a celebrity that you think sets a great example or is a role model. So I'm starting here by some people think celebrities are terrible role models, but they clearly haven't heard of, and then I could name a celebrity and write a bit about them. If you're stuck for ideas here, Marcus Rashford's a great example of a role model who has campaigned for charity and has also shown a really great level of professionalism and dignity when he's been treated with racist abuse, and he's continued to play at a very high level. So he's somebody who we can argue is definitely a great role model who sets a great example to young people. But you can think of a celebrity that you admire if it's not Marcus Rashford that you want to write about. It's just an example to keep you going if you want to use that. You've got about 5 minutes. You'll hear from me when the time is up. Okay, so we're into part 6 now. We've got about 10 minutes left of our time to write this response. So we're going to conclude now by telling our reader again that role models are important. So you could also encourage them to think about who they are role models to themselves. We should all aspire to set great examples to people who are about to walk down the path that we've trod. So you've got about 5 minutes to sum up your argument. You could recap some of your main points and mention doctors and nurses and teachers, but we're keeping this concise in 1 or 2 paragraphs to conclude. You've got about 5 minutes. You'll hear from me when the time is up. Okay, you've now got about 5 minutes to edit your work. Now, the best responses will have been edited by writers at the end. So if you're a student who's spending your time at the end of your response to edit carefully, you're going to get yourself more marks. Checking your spelling, punctuation and grammar is definitely important. You're going to have made a mistake. There'll be a full stop missing somewhere, or you will have written something that needs changing. But editing is the skill that's really important. You'll be able to think, hang on, I can use a bit more ambitious vocabulary here. And if you see a word that you want to change, just put a neat line through it and write above it. Don't write in the margin. That won't be marked by your examiner. You've got a few minutes to do that. Now you'll hear from me when the time is up. Okay, to end on, we should have now a really, really well-considered, well-structured response. We've introduced our position to our readers. We've spoken about a number of different things that matter to be persuasive. We've shown that we've got great ideas. And we've also made sure that we've maintained a persuasive tone throughout our writing by using persuasive techniques. But you should come away knowing that the idea of planning your response first gives you that direction. And that's something that you will be able to do on your own in the exam, so long as you dedicate a little bit of time at the beginning to planning. Okay, check out the other videos on my channel. I'll continue to add content, and feel free to ask something you'd like to see me cover in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share, and keep revising.